Let me check. We're supposed to go live in a minute. Uh, I'm just checking that we are live or no. Yeah, perfect. We are live.
Right.
Okay. Hello to everyone. Today is a special episode. It's summer almost ended. You know that I have been traveling a lot and like met amazing people out there on the trip. And on during my trip, I just catch one of the guys who I know already for a couple of years, and he was really so cool to join us on summer live stream and share the wisdom and share the incredible experience of handling over $250 million real estate properties in California. His name is Mikey Taylor. Before we will move forward to you, Mikey, I want to describe what kind of person it is. He's basically in the past professional skateboarder. So he was just passionate about the street out activities, and just after that he find out that he could create a beer brand and just started his own drafting beer, and was able successfully sell it to company which is acquired for a significant amount, and after that move to the real estate space and find out the success there as well, and building not just his wealth, but what I can see from my end, he building his own environment in the way that he and his family can live in this secured and proper environment by improving the quality of living, by building the houses, buying the houses, improving them, and just managing everything under his own. Plus, in the same time, he is a parent. He and his wife has 4 kids. This guy managing such a big company has a 4 kids and successfully become one of the biggest influencers and consuls of his own city. I'm really excited to hear your background and how you're managing all of that. But seriously, Mikey, welcome to the podcast, and I really appreciate for having the time to be here.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm stoked as well.
Amazing, man. So let's move on. In general, seriously, skateboarder. You become a professional on it. You start going to competitions and being a participant in different cool activities. What has been changed? Why you have decided to go to the direction of real estate, especially commercial and residential? It's a mix. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So basically, when I was skateboarding, the amazing part about it was I got to live my passion. My passion became a career. So I got to do what I loved every day and make money. That was the cool part. The challenge was every day I went further in being a professional career was a day closer to the end. It was like I was watching the time run out as I was basically loving what I was doing. So I knew that it was going to end a lot quicker than I wanted. And so when I was skating, I was trying to basically put my money in as many assets as possible that would help my transition out of skateboarding. And in the beginning, it was basic. It was stocks and bonds. There was nothing very special about it. I was in, IRAs, and I was saving to be able to invest in real estate. Real estate for me was the one that I felt like I could count on. I wanted cash flow. I wanted appreciation. And so I started investing in storage units while I was still skateboarding. And
Mm-hmm.
then while I was skating, you kind of touched on it. I started my first business in the beer industry. When we sold it, that was a huge windfall of cash to myself and all of our investors. And so what I did with the cash, I just basically threw the majority of it back into real estate. Like real estate was just that asset for me that I felt comfortable putting my money in and knew it would be there for me when I needed it in the future. And then I decided I wanted to build a business around it. So I started a private equity firm that focused on multifamily and storage. And I think it was just the experience I had over the last 15 years, 16 years investing in real estate. I felt like that was a great opportunity to bring to others who maybe didn't know how to invest in real estate or didn't have the time to find a deal, build it out, manage it, but they wanted to have money into it or invested into it. So that was the whole kind of premise. I'll build a company and bring this investment to others who want to participate but don't want to sacrifice time.
Nice, man. Like, so like you are making money, but you understand that it cannot just stay on the bank account under the pillow, like whatever, like just because I believe you realize what's the point of the finances in terms of like money are losing their power year by year, losing their value, and in the same time like property management and like real estate itself, it's a great tax deductible tool, official, I mean,
Right.
which is like completely illegal, and this is how you can build your real wealth and like passive income for the end of your life. And like seriously, that's what you done, incredible. But how is it was hard for you when you like, okay, in your end it was cool, you sold the company, you have a cash, but cash without knowledge, you know, there is so many people out there who listen in us, they're mostly e-commerce guys, but they
Mhm.
thinking like, okay, I'm making all this money, where I would be investing, what I will be doing next, like how I can protect my income. Can you just like guide them in the way when you were starting, what was, maybe it was harder than now, like
Yeah.
maybe what's the difference then and what's the difference now? What's your
Yeah.
bullet
That,
points about it?
that's a good question. So, things like inflation, like I think about inflation more now than I did when I was younger trying to get started. My when I was making money skateboarding and trying to go from all active income into passive income, the thing that I kept thinking was, what good is a big lump sum of money going to do for me? Right? Like, let's say I save up $1 million, right? I got $1 million in cash. I lose my job. I lose my income. What happens? I start pulling away from the cash and I watch it go back down to zero. So it just felt like that model wasn't sustainable. And so, the first investment, it was, gosh, I think I invested 25,000. It wasn't a ton, right? The Here's what was good. This is what changed for me. One, I invested in something that brought in cash flow. So now I had money coming to me that I wasn't sacrificing time for. The second one, this was the big one, I got tax efficiency. That's one thing that I see, for your space and ecom, I have a lot of friends that moved to like Puerto Rico, or they're trying moving to Dubai. They're trying to live in a space that's more tax efficient for their active income.
Mm-hmm.
But real estate offers that. It just, you need to shift to not focusing entirely on active, putting money into passive, and then capturing basically loss to offset the passive gain. That's a game that starts getting really fun, but you don't get to participate in it until you invest in it. It's just, I think it's easier to keep more of your money when you're investing versus active income.
Nice. And in this case, like California, the most horrible state in terms of taxes. I remember in Austin, November 2021, we were having dinner and I was asking, and everyone actually was, oh, I'm moving from California to Austin. I'm moving from California somewhere else.
Right.
And I was asking, are you moving? You said, oh, I have a family there. It's hard for me. I wish, but it's not really necessary. And that time I wasn't understanding like that kind of him, how he's protecting his taxes, you know.
Right.
And like like now, since I'm as well like starting the real estate journey on my end, I completely understand what it means. Like you are able to live in the most expensive tax related state, and paying the lowest taxes officially just because you're doing the right stuff. Am I right, or there is maybe some kind of underwater stones?
Yeah, well, look, there's no doubt about it. Living in California is more expensive than living in most other states in the nation, right? There is that. For me, there's a price I'm willing to pay to live here because of what you just explained. My family's here, my friends are here. I'm a now council member of the city of Thousand Oaks. But what we were talking about is I'm a real estate professional. And because I'm a real estate professional, I'm able to use, things like depreciation to offset my active income. Where prior to me being a real estate professional, active loss could only offset active loss, and passive loss could only offset, active loss could only offset active gain, and passive loss could only offset passive gain. Uh, when you become a real estate professional, it gets a little bit easier at bringing your taxable income down, or maybe you get money in your pocket that doesn't necessarily look like on paper there's money in your pocket. And so because of that, it makes it a little bit easier to live in California, you know.
Yeah, and it's cool to speak about that, loud without hiding anything, because this is how system is built. It's
Right.
official. It is under the law, and like in this case, like how many people right now working to manage such kind of big property list on your end?
So we have about 20 people working for our company, and we sit basically, think of it as the top, right? We raise money, we then put that money into the assets, and then from there we have, developing partners, general contractors, the whole crew, then, property management company. So at the end of the day, the total team is actually really large, but on our end, it's about 20. And that will, we'll get to about, I would say, 500 million, maybe a little bit more with this crew. And then as we start getting
Mhm.
closer to a billion, we'll grow a little bit.
Like guys who is watching us or listening in the recording, can you imagine, like we are speaking about $1 billion property management, and you know what, it's not shocked, it's normal. I remember even your words, like how, as well, it's one of the proofs about Mikey. 1.5 years ago I asked him how big the property site you're managing. He said, oh, I'm a small company, like only $200 million like in properties. I like, seriously, like small company. But I understand now that it's really like kind of average company for real estate investments, kind of. I mean, no, average, it's too low, because like there is regular people just handling 5-10 houses, but you handling like quite good, but far away from the like that level where you want to be. But it's so easy from here to be in $1 billion value, like
Mhm.
in matter of couple of years, and it's already proved, like 1.5 year from 200 mils to 250. Like we are not speaking 200K, we're speaking about 250 mils. So like how exactly you are expanding and planning to expand to the $1 billion portfolio,
That's a good
except
question.
people?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when you think of real estate, and this is kind of one of the, I think, big benefits of investing in real estate, is financial leverage. It's financing options, right? So if you buy $100 million, let's say, apartment building, you don't need to come up with $100 million of cash, right? You can come up with $35 million of cash and finance the rest, right? And then when you start doing things like building or even like a value add component to your apartment, or I'm just using apartment for this example, this is where it starts getting really fun, right? Because you can, let's say, buy a property for $100 million, right? Which is, let's say, a $35 million investment. You can add value to it, and then you could watch the value of that apartment grow. So, once it's complete, maybe the property's worth 150, 160 when you're done. You can do that over and over and over. So it starts getting pretty fun, but it takes time. And I think that's where most people have a challenge with it, right? They want their money turning every year. It's not how real estate works. Then once you have the asset that you turned, a lot of people want to sell it. But the magic, in my perspective, is when you basically add value to something and then hold it and just let it cash flow. That's where real estate starts getting fun, in my perspective.
100%. Like that's exactly like we have three properties under the contract, and it's exactly we buying really cheap, and our estimated value after that it's almost 3 times, 2.5 times higher after the repair,
Right.
so of each property. So it's exactly what, but you just described in the hundred of millions. So you invested 35, value of the property up to 100, and after repair it will be almost double. And like, or you selling or you just refinancing, taking this top amount as a profit, untaxable income. Am I
Right. And
right?
and look, it's all the same when you think about it, right? It could be 35 grand to buy a $100,000 property. It
Exactly.
could be 350 to buy a million, right? A lot of the metrics are they cross over, but the challenge is you have different competition in at each level, right? If you're looking for maybe $100,000 to $200,000 property, you're competing with a lot of people, a lot of like individuals hustling to grow, right?
Hmm.
Then as you start getting into, like, let's call it the million to $10 million zone, maybe a little bit larger, 15. Now you're competing with like mom and pop investors, right? It's people that go beyond like the home flipper that's doing one home and maybe they're going to like a 20 unit, 30 unit apartment. When you start
Hmm.
going beyond that, you start getting into like the $50 million zone. Now you're starting to compete with institutional investors, and that's where it starts getting tough. It's
Hmm.
big dollars, and their time frame is longer than yours. So a lot of times what they're able to get to work is a little bit harder for like what our size would be. We're technically a boutique size firm. So, but at the end of the day, it's all the same, you know?
Yeah, like I'm looking on this, like I was thinking for a while about real estate, but this year it's already like we are taking action. And think is, I was looking on it, like I was playing Monopoly with my son. He's 5 year old, almost 6, but quite smart dude in terms of I'm teaching him like different games, and cash flow now it's a new game for us, for me as well. And like Monopoly, he was buying always the cheapest properties, like whatever he can. And like when I saw this kind of, I didn't play Monopoly for 20 years, and I start playing with my son. I saw this tactic. It's the best tactic ever to start buying cheapest. I mean, make bring the value, make the money from it, and then go to the next level, bigger size deals, and again, and you just repeating it, everything the same, just with the bigger value on it. And that was really crucial for me to make a decision, because one of my partner was saying, let's go to one state, there is like XYZ better properties, like bigger value. But my mentor saying to me, you have to be here because here is a cheaper deals, you're a beginner and all the stuff. And I like, it helped me understand that I have to slow down and focus on really what's easier for me to manage, easier to learn on, making mistakes on. And after that, just like moving on to the bigger properties, or even stay in the same state and do like you doing, like just building better environment in that state, in that city where I will be. So like, by that being said, like it's a real important thing to not spread your attention in terms of like handling over the states, all the properties. Can you give the insights about that? How big duration of all your properties between each other in terms of miles?
Yeah.
Because and how hard is handling it?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's a couple things that you focus on, right? Like one, you want to make sure you're not diluting your time where it's best used, period, right? So like, if you're, let's say you're building a online business, right? And that is your greatest source of income. If you start focusing on building something else before the first thing can basically be fully automated, well, you're actually diluting your potential of income to, in theory, do something else, right? So you need to just be mindful that it may not be time for you to move over to building an active portfolio or even an active business in some other category. So you want to be mindful that you're spending your time at the best use first. Once you get to the point where maybe you've automated your business or it's running without you, you've got people in place to do it, and you want to start building out a portfolio yourself,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you have to think about where you're going to invest and your ability to manage it at that time, right? If you're going to manage out of state and then you're going to manage in a bunch of different states, it's going to be more difficult. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but it's going to be
Exactly.
more difficult. So you just want to make sure that if you're building something as you're learning, it's probably going to be easier for you to start with something that's manageable, build
Mm-hmm.
your experience, build your team, and then once you have that and you're doing that well, then start expanding. Where, us as entrepreneurs, like, one of our gifts is also our challenge. We think anything's possible and we can do anything. And so who cares? I'll buy something in, you know, Ohio, and then I'll buy something in Washington, then I'll buy something in Kansas, right? Uh, it's harder to do that way. So, we do have a portfolio where it's all over. Like our storage portfolio is in what, 8 different states. Our properties are spread out there. Our multifamily portfolio is all in California. It just kind of happened that way. But we've also been doing this a long time. So we were able to start in one spot, then
Mm-hmm.
grow, build our relationships, and then build our team.
May I ask you, like, what was the bigger jump for you? Like 250 mils? Like seriously, it's quite a lot of different properties, and like quite big value on it. So I'm just wondering, you started how many? Like, what the worst was there approximately in your memories, and what was the bigger jump for you? You made some kind of great deal, great finances, or you just like smoothly was growing in that process? Because really it's like it could take generation to jump from 100K to 250 millions. So
Right.
definitely there is steps.
Okay, so my first active deal, it was a $7.3 million purchase. We put about $3 million into it. So let's say we were all in for 10 million.
Mm-hmm.
The three that we put in, we raised. So I had to raise about a little over $3 million. Once it was stabilized, the value was about 12.8, and then we ended up selling it for just under 14. So that was the very first one. The truth is, though, and here's like to answer your question, there's not much that changes between a 30 unit apartment and a 100 unit apartment. It's just the numbers become bigger. And so,
Mm-hmm.
I would say the big jump was having to raise more money in the same amount of time. So for anyone listening that basically doesn't know how quick real estate moves, in a lot of times when you get something under contract, if it's in a competitive kind of time, you'll have 2 weeks of due diligence and then maybe like a 30-day close. And so in that window, let's call it 40, 45 days, you've got to raise all the money that you need to close on the project. If you're doing it like me, if you're
Mm-hmm.
investing your own money, then you don't have to raise the money. But that could be challenging going from our first raise, which was $3 million. And now like, we're raising just about $50 million raise in this new fund. And so that was a jump, going from a comfortable check size of 5 and then now looking at deals where it's a check size of 20, 25.
Mm-hmm.
I was uncomfortable, but not much changed. It was more just a mindset, I think, because we already had the team in place. We already know how to manage the investment. We know how to raise capital. It's just a larger amount now.
Yeah, like repeating what's working, do more what's working, and don't go left and right,
Right.
especially when you focus on one area. I have one question from our viewers. Like, Mikey, how big is your portfolio in terms of commercial and residential? And what would you prefer, commercial or residential? And as well, yeah, let's answer on that, and after that,
Yeah, it's a good
everything
question.
else.
So it's technically all commercial, but multifamily above 5 units is residential commercial. So
Hmm.
out of our properties, uh, let's see, about 8,500 units are storage, and then multifamily, I would have to add up right now. All of our multifamily is all development right now. So maybe the multifamily is going to be 150 units, but that's in California. So 150 unit apartment in California is basically could be worth the same as a 3,000 unit storage unit somewhere else.
Yeah,
What
in
do I
Utah
like?
somewhere.
Yeah, what do I? For example, we're building an 88 unit right now in California, and that project's costing us about 36 million bucks to build. 37 million
Oh,
bucks.
you're building it. I didn't know that you're building as well.
All of our apartments right now in the new fund are all development. It's all buying
Wow,
basically distressed assets or something that we can scrape and build.
that's awesome. So you're buying the land and just like for making the project development from scratch.
We buy the land, or like the new one I was just telling you about, the 88 unit. It was a boatyard. So we bought the
Hmm.
boatyard. It's going to take us about a year to get through basically all of our permits. We kept the
That's
tenant in for
another
the
thing.
year. Yeah.
Take
And
take
then,
life
yeah.
to get
Yep.
approved.
Yep. So yeah, in California, it could be more expensive. You have to be mindful of that. What do I like better? There's things I like about storage. There's things I like about multifamily. Storage, I think, is a little bit easier to manage. Somebody's not living at your facility, so I think there's an element to it that is less emotional, and they're cash cows. Storage units cash flow so well.
LTV is high, yeah,
Yeah,
for
but
storage.
what I like about multifamily, and I don't know which one I would prefer. I also like the element of people living there, like the experience side. I like, especially coming from more of a marketing and sales background. Like, talk about creating an experience for somebody. Like, where they live is the ultimate experience. So I like taking what I think is a part of my skill set that came from skateboarding and then into the craft beer industry, and adding value to our apartment that I think most of our competitors don't understand. Stuff that you would think is
Exactly.
so obvious, right? Like, most investors, when they look at building an apartment, they're only looking at the numbers, right? What can I put in and
Hmm.
how much am I going to get out? Which is important, but they don't really have their finger on the pulse when it comes to culture. right? They don't really know what the younger generation wants. They have no clue what's going on with Gen Z. They think they know what's going on with millennial. They don't really. So I like looking at apartments as places in which become content studios, right? Like, how do you create every element of the apartment to be a great background to go on Instagram Live, to create a story, like little things like that, that people like you would probably think are so basic end up being huge in the commercial real estate space.
Yeah, I will tell you that my mentor, he is in this state, in one particular state, in one particular city, and he's making the city just bigger, I mean, nicer. And the thing is, he's in Section 8. He
Right.
decided to go to Section 8 because he wants to bring value to people and not just making the awful apartment still ugly but suitable, getting approved. He's making ugly apartment to really cool apartments for normal rent, but he giving to the poorer people. So
Right.
he, by that being said, he wants to bring value, and that's what you said. You are unbeating your competitors. Just like you delivering incredible experience for people. He has a queue of people who want to live in his apartments because
Right.
they know what is that. And
Right.
second thing, like you like making the higher rent as well, obviously, and in the same time, like you bring incredible improvement for your environment in the city, and like neighborhood is better and so on. So it's a cool point, seriously. And according to that, how important is to work with the, like, let's speak about, like, now you have a team, or you have a structure, so it's different companies who you cooperating with, who working on you, who working with you, partnerships and so on. So you build it, but on the way to build, how important is to find out the proper management company in the real estate space?
Oh, it's everything in my perspective. It's everything. Something I often say to new investors is you don't want to be a landlord. That's not what you're in here to do. You want to be a real estate investor. And there's a very big difference, right? And for basically your world, or maybe like, more of the audience, it would be the importance of not being a solopreneur and actually building out a team that you can scale. Same thing crosses over into real estate. But a lot of people get stuck in the DIY, and I need to do everything and I have to have control over everything. And it really, really limits, one, how big you can become, and two, it ends up taking all of your time to manage a very small portion of real estate. And so, the importance of building a team is everything. It is the same exact thing as building a business. And so, what I like about property management, this is where some of the earlier or newer investors have a hard time. They look at the cost. They go, I'm going to
Hmm.
pay a property manager 5%. Maybe Airbnb would be a relevant one. They're paying them 30% to manage their properties. 30% is a ton of money. It's psycho. But if you don't pay them the 30, you save 30%, but guess how much time you just sacrificed to do it, right? And so I
Hmm.
like the idea of putting people in place that their skill set and job is managing the investment or managing the tenants. And then I focus my time, or maybe you focus your time getting the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one. So I just think it's important to build out the the end goal, right? Where do you ultimately want to be? Where is that? And then where do you basically align in that journey? Are you the one that's here to drive that thing forward? Are you the vision? Are you the energy? Are you bringing people in to accomplish it? And if so, what are you doing managing a property? That's not what you're here to do. And so I think it's everything. If that's your goal, if you want to just own one property, you want to manage it yourself, and that's going to be your second job, then I'm not speaking to you. Then that's exactly what you should do. But if you want to build out a real estate portfolio and you want to really free up your time, you have to put people in place.
Yeah, you can. You have to sacrifice of income at the beginning to faster to move a bit faster than if you would be alone. It's what I learned in the business itself. Like as an entrepreneur, because you build in portfolio, it means you like start entrepreneurship journey if you haven't been before. And the thing is that I was really small and stuck on one level, hit my ceiling by being like a mentor and doing several side hustles in e-commerce and running my own brand. But one day when I decided to create to open the agency, like, and hire like team members, I open up that like it could be really now open my focus from busy work to vision. to
Right.
vision and focusing where to bring from where to bring more business,
Right.
from how to find new partners, new clients, like, and brainstorm ideas, because if you're busy in this kind of like daily operations, you'll stuck on the level where you are maximum bit higher, just because, and you'll feel exhausted.
Right.
You, like, seriously, you will feel like that you hate everything and you don't know why you're doing that, except like side hustle income because your kids need to go to college, something like that.
Right.
You know, it's important. It's important what you describe. Seriously, it's very important. The point that you have to open your time to search for the bigger deals, to new deals and new partnerships.
Right.
Uh, I have like couple of questions here again. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is operate on the highest possible echelon when it comes to sales and persuasion skills?
Say that one more time.
Yeah, sorry. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is to operate at the highest possible echelon when it comes to sales and precision skills?
I think this highlights what we were just talking about, right? Like
Mm,
it you're doing yourself a disservice by not putting yourself in a position to use your skills to their highest calling, right? I think it really just comes down to your value of time, right? A lot of times we undervalue ourselves and we don't. Let's say it this way. I think this is a good way to say it because you actually touched on it greatly. When you're starting a business, you're dealing with a limited amount of revenue, right? Let's say the business is bringing in 400K and it's just you, right? Sweet, right? You know, a good little salary going on. Most people won't go, you know what? I'm going to live off 150 and I'm going to give the rest to hiring people, right? Most people won't make that sacrifice because it means you are now making less, right? But what happens in the long term is you actually build out a team for you to then get to 8, then 1,000,005. Then all of a sudden you're doing 5, then 10 million. And before you know it, you're making more money than you ever dreamed and spending your time doing the things that one are the highest calling and two are more enjoyable. Right. And so you just have to really learn how to delay gratification and have more of a long term outlook. Right. I think probably a good way to look at it is look at like how like back in the day when there were kings, right? When there were kings, think about their time frame. It was all legacy viewpoint. Like what can I
mhm.
leave for my kids and their kids and their kids? And how do we have our name remain and own this land, whatever it is, for generations and generations to come, right? The beauty of that is you make different types of decisions in the moment when you're thinking about your grandkids. And I think those are actually the right decisions to make. We just don't do that. We get stuck in this world of having to make a decision for right now, and who cares about tomorrow? Tomorrow's going to be forgotten, and it actually doesn't put ourselves in a position of really growing much or anything that significant.
Yeah, it's a, I would say, kind of problem of nowadays, like everyone living today. And the point, a really great point about you are like you should just dream bigger. I would summarize that. If you dream bigger, if you believe that it's possible, you have just to move forward and do not stuck on the level which you described, because like it's more fun, it's more risks, it's more like stress sometimes, less income at the beginning. Believe me, I know that like so many times I haven't paid to myself, but I'm making sure that my team is, treat well. So like, by that being said, like it's very very important to sacrifice when it's needed and understand for what you're doing that, and it's dream bigger and believe in what you're doing in every
Right.
single step.
Right.
uh,
100%.
Another question: what are the metrics you look at when you are looking for management companies and construction companies to make sure they are good, great fit? I love this question.
That's a good one. So, as far as construction companies, uh, we there's a handful of things there. If it's a new one, we want to go back and look at all of their experience. We want to be talking to people that have worked with them in the past. And one question that we ask people a lot is, tell us about things that have gone wrong. And if someone says nothing's ever gone wrong, I've always done it right. Basically, two things are at play: one, they haven't been doing it long enough for something to go wrong, or two, they're lying to you. So that's actually a very important question to ask. And you're not don't be concerned that something goes wrong. Something going wrong is inevitable. That's always going to be the case. What you're trying to figure out is what type of decisions did they make when they were put under challenge or had adversity thrown their way. For the management companies, we want to. This one's a little bit harder actually because you have a couple options. You can have a national firm that's managing units everywhere, or you can have a smaller mom and pop type of management company. And
Which is cheaper, most probably.
with
Yeah.
his, which is cheaper. Well, not always actually. Believe it or not, sometimes the national firms they've hit uh, a certain scale where they could just be more efficient with their pricing, more
Hmm.
competitive. But a lot of times the national firms don't understand or they're not as in tune in the specific market. Where sometimes the mom and pop management, they know everything about Long Beach or everything about like a little sub market. And so, with all that said, we try to hit the middle. Like, we don't want somebody who's managing 100 units, uh, but we don't really need somebody who's managing 50, 60,000 either. Like, we want somebody who owns a market and is managing enough to have a company that's, running at scale ultimately.
Yeah, that makes sense, for sure. Especially like, yeah.
And then I would say once you have a good team, we use them over and over. Like, we have basically now 3 developing partners that we use when we're building something. Our management company, we have 3 management companies. Uh, and sometimes you have to expand if they're not in a new market, but when you find a good one, hang on to them.
Yeah, it's actually that's a brilliant point, because people like using good people, and after that they just next time shopping around to someone else instead of just calling to the guy who they trust and know and saying, hey, we have another job. I noticed that really, like, this is what kind of mistake in any kind of businesses, like people shopping around again and again, believing that there is some grass will be more greener on another side of the river, every single time, when they
Right.
already have a good experience. By
Right.
that being said, since I'm managing like everything on distance, and I know people who are doing exactly the same, but already more experienced than me, obviously. And my question is, how would you control the work without flying every single time into the place? Like that maintenance company, management company working well, contractor doing exactly what he's saying that he's done. Like putting the carpet, like painting the walls, whatever. How would you track that kind of work, and how you would estimate if they done good job or no?
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. We typically have an owner's rep, or we have somebody in the company that, you know, whatever the schedule is. Let's say it's once a month. They're flying out and basically checking on all of the work throughout the process. Um,
Construction
there's
work, I mean.
construction work, yeah. So we have, for all of our properties in California, it's a little bit easier for us. Our furthest property is 3 hours away. And so we'll either hire somebody and their job is basically once a month or every 2 weeks to go down there and basically just report back to us that everything that's being communicated is getting done. There's tools now that uh, that are on the software side, tech side, that basically allow you as an investor to track all of the processes that the property management is saying they're doing. And they'll do it from, I'm trying to think of one of the names of the company. So basically, if you have a new unit that has turnover, right?
Hmm.
Basically, you'll see that the unit was turned over. They'll say, do I have permission to do this, this, and this? You would check in your app, yes. And then they would basically show the work. You'd hit a confirmation, then to move on and move on. So there's a lot of tools that are coming out to help manage it, but we still put a body on it. That's just what we feel comfortable doing right now.
Hmm. That's interesting. I know that like of hiring the person, it's exactly the thing which is, I believe it makes sense if you're speaking about small portfolios like up to 100 houses. So like when you already have like 10 plus, maybe even 5 plus properties, if you're speaking about single family place or duplexes, it makes sense because you have enough cash flow to hire the person. But what would you do with couple of properties? You still sacrifice by paying someone full-time salary to make sure that he'll manage managing these 3 properties, I mean making sure that it's everything under control, or you would wait until you get another 5, 10, 15, and after that hire from the cash for the person? Like, how would you do in your way with the
Well,
smaller quantity?
yeah. So I think one thing to note, hiring an owner's rep, they're not working for you 24/7, right? You're talking about them potentially spending what, 4 hours a month looking at a project. So it's not a ton of income sacrifice in my perspective. If you don't want to do that, you have one other option. You're doing it yourself. You are driving to the properties, or if you feel comfortable with it, you set up some type of video service, right? I need to see basically a video at the end of the day showing me the work that was done. Supreme used to do that, right? Every Supreme store, by the time they were about to close, they had to basically, the manager had to film a video of everything in the right place and send it to the owner every single night, right? He wanted control that every shop looked a certain way, and he just did it through video format. So I think you can get creative on how you do it, um, especially when you're small.
Yeah, it's a discipline. Like the team knows that they're responsible at the end when they close in the store, that everything's supposed to be on the place when even no top management in the room. Because when no top management in the room, what everyone like smoking cigarettes. I mean, like, but when you have discipline, you definitely going to be making sure that everything done even without the management. That's cool inside, and especially like with contractors, photo report or video report at the end of the day what they have done daily. This is what I like created for myself. But in the about creative, like being creative and like paying hourly, this is what I haven't thinking, because I'm not the United States citizen. For me, paying hourly, it's something like what's not coming first in mind, because US, it's all about paying hourly. So
Right.
hire the person for, let's say, 8 hours a week or a month, and he is just like gonna be do the work, and like it's a just extra side hustle for done nothing almost. Am I right?
Right. Correct.
Nice, nice. Okay, that's cool. So, oh, nice. Here is other questions. What innovative approaches have you adopted to determine the long-term viability of properties in diverse locations, and how do you determine the properties for rental income or operation appreciation?
Did it say renovate? Was that the word you're using? Renovate?
Uh, Long-term viability of properties in
That word.
diverse
What
locations.
what's that word? I'm not understanding that one.
Diverse.
Diverse.
Uh, Viability, yeah.
What is that word?
Viability.
R-
Viability.
Rehabilitate or
My
rehab?
Yeah. No,
Maybe it's
yeah, we can say rehab, yeah, in other words.
rehab.
Like, sorry,
Okay.
it's it's just my accent.
It's okay. So basically, the question is, what have I learned, or what do we do when we're looking at rehabbing a property in a very rough area or a low income area? Is that what it is?
Yeah, yeah, low or average.
Um, okay, that's a good question. So you have this is a complex, actually, question. One, a lot of people go into areas because it's a cheaper purchase, right? The property is cheaper in a rougher area. Uh, but you have to be mindful that it's cheaper for a reason, right? It's cheaper because there's less demand, there's less basically people wanting to live there, and so in theory there's more risk, right? That's why the premium or the cap rate isn't as compressed in that area. So we typically don't look for areas like that. We're not looking for the cheapest purchase. We are typically looking at markets that are difficult to get into, meaning they're more expensive. If you're going to go into the cheaper areas, though, there's a couple things that you need to be mindful of. One, your ability to drive rents up may not be as high as you would like them to be, right? If you're in a cheaper area and maybe one bedroom is renting for $600 a month, you may not be able to go in there, renovate it, and charge $1,200 a month. That demand may not be in that market. So what you want to do, I think this is important for any market. One, is the market saturated? right? Call around other apartments in the area and find out what their occupancy is. If there's a lot of occupancy in the market, if there's a lot of vacancy in the market, well, you might not be able to drive rents up, or you adding value may not be there. The demand might not be there. We look for major employers. What are the major employers in the market? Is there population growth? What's job growth look like? We want a lot of factors in our favor to show that there's going to be demand for our apartment for the next 10 years. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in the cheaper areas, you don't have that certainty that you're going to have demand over 10. And so just be mindful of that, or be careful of it. Uh, when you're trying to push rents beyond what the market supports, just run your numbers and find out what happens if you don't hit those rents, right? Like, let's say, you know, market rent for a 2-bedroom apartment is, let's call it $2,000. And you're going to find an apartment that's currently renting at 1,600. You're going to renovate it, and you're going to test the market and try to hit 2,100 for the 2-bedroom, right? When you're running your numbers before you buy it, you should look into what happens if not only you don't hit the 2,100, what happens if you don't even hit the 2,000? What if you can only rent it
Mm-hmm.
for 1,850? What does that do to your financial modeling? And then you want to do that
Mm-hmm.
in actually every other aspect, right? What happens if vacancy increases and I have to give rent concessions? What happens if interest rates rise? What happens if cap rates soften? And look what that does to your return. And if you're not able to make a return when things don't go according to plan, that's probably not a great investment to go into, or you may be taking on a lot of risk. If the investment only works if everything goes right, you're most likely going to lose money.
That's really the most important, to study the location. I remember that's fun time. We spent like hours when I've been in. By the way, when we met in Arizona with my business partner, we were like spending in the hotel room like around 3 hours just brainstorming, like, and chat GPT and all that stuff, researches about the areas and all that stuff. It's exactly the fun thing, but really like studying like what's the unemployment, what's the crime, like what's the normal crime rate, what's the crime rate in this particular street, like so much of the different things like has been studied, just because understood that if you go somewhere where people running out of the town,
Right.
you could be really screwed.
Yeah.
And that's one of the crucial points for like beginners, for guys who are listening. That's number one thing what you have to do before thinking even like, should I do that or no.
Correct.
And in this case, like just prove that you don't need to have money to start real estate game. I mean, why I'm saying proof, because I know that it's possible, and I just like want guys and girls hearing the from experienced person that really, without making the huge investments, you can become a real estate investor. Am I right?
You're 100% correct. There is such thing as sweat equity. If you have the skill set, if you're finding the project, you're going to manage it, you can bring investors in and you could participate in the general partnership because of what you're doing. You're sacrificing your time for ownership. And you can do that over and over until you have money. And then you could do whatever you want with that money. But yes, investors, the thing that we forget is when you start getting into the bigger investors, they don't want to sacrifice their time anymore. They just want good deals. And so if you can bring a good deal to an investor is willing to put their money into it, and you get to participate if you perform. So no, you don't need money, but you need a skill set. You have to have the knowledge and the drive to execute.
100%. Love the answer. Appreciate it. It's very important to understand, guys, that like you can have, even you can be locally in the area and people are looking in you, like what's the people don't understand the power of the Facebook groups. This is how I started e-commerce in the past, like back end. Like I didn't have money, I didn't have possibilities to do anything, and Facebook groups, it's even now, like there is the Discord, there is a lot of different channels, but Facebook groups, it's so powerful. There is wholesalers, it's people who are like having the properties under the contract and can sell it to you. You can become wholesaler and finding out the same in the groups, like, hey, in the hot area, I have a contract in my hands, like and you added a couple of $1,000, $10,000, it depends on the value property, yes, $50,000 on the top of it and making money from it. So there is so much possibilities to like jump into it without having found. People have just more excuses because it sounds too difficult, too hard. But actually what is happening in majority of places in United States, there is not enough rents, there is
Right.
not enough houses. That's the thing. So like it's hard, but it's easier than people think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. 100%.
And you are like, especially in commercial, in the storage space, it's incredible. It's, I believe it's lifetime LTV, it's forever, like whatever people live in the, because like usually what they hold in the storage, something what they will never use again, or once in a year. And gonna be paying for that monthly.
Right.
Like that's a really cool area. But about the commercial in general, what do you think in nowadays, like since New York was like 40% of how much it was like empty, unoccupied, history lowest level in San Francisco and
Um,
some other cities, like what can you say, like how is the tendency in the California right now with
so
the offices, I mean, commercial?
office in a lot of areas is getting hit. San Francisco, it's a mess. New York, I mean, there's a lot of areas, uh, and I think it makes sense. It's like, I think ecom is slowly pulling away. Anything, as we move into more of a hybrid model, I think it pulls away. COVID did its thing on office, and then I think policy kind of was the finishing touch. In states that are more difficult to do business, you're seeing a lot of major corporations leave, right? I mean, Elon picked up and moved. Right now, I guess he's holding hard on Twitter, staying in SF, but he pulled companies out of California, especially, and they were all up north, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's I'm not as bullish on office personally, but as you
Mm-hmm.
shift over, you touched on storage. Americans, we don't like getting rid of stuff. We're hoarders. So I think storage is going to be fine for a long time. Multifamily,
Collecting, just collecting.
yeah, yeah. And then
And
the
holding.
residential side, like, you need a place to live. And in California, we are like incredibly undersupplied. We need 3.5 million units built by 2025. And over the last 10 years, we've averaged 104,000 new units per year. And so if nothing changes, we don't get any better at doing this.
Seriously?
Yep, we won't hit that 3.5 million units till almost 2090 if nothing changes. And so it just keeps driving prices up. It's honestly, it's the model of our whole fund. There's undersupplied markets because it's difficult to build. No one wants to invest here because it's challenging. So we invest here
Yeah.
and we build, and it's undersupplied. And you go back to the
Monopoly.
yeah, it's like that's right. It's like owning a monopoly. Yeah, why would you sell?
That's insane. Like now, like that's what I like in the city where we are investing. The prices are going higher and higher on the rent, and because people are like the loans becoming more expensive, houses like not going expensive right now, saying the same, but I mean houses become expensive after the percentage became more expensive, interest, and people are not able to afford it, and they going to rent.
Right,
They are going to rent, and more rentals needed, and it's shortage on the rentals.
right,
And but California, what you mentioned, it's just showing the whole picture of United, not even United States. I'm in Portugal before after war started in Ukraine. I have been in Switzerland for 4 months. I have been in Germany. I have been different places. Everywhere, people's countries are sacrificing with the properties for rent.
right,
Not enough,
right. No,
especially
no,
after war started. So
right,
can you imagine, like 3 million people, 3 million Ukrainians moved out of Ukraine in 1 month or couple of months to Europe.
right,
3 million. So,
right,
and like plus Russian side supposed started as well going out, and more people as well, immigrants who are moving by itself before. So it's such a huge demand around the world. But United States, well, I know it's a lot, it's a bubble. There is a lot of economical things, but let's speak about real estate only. It's a huge demand. I mean, just
huge.
very important to make sure the area not dying.
That's right.
That's for sure.
Yep.
I don't want to take too much of your time. I just want to ask last question, which is I see the people are asking, and if you're fine with that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, perfect. So, are you using a fixed golden formula to estimate if property could be a great rental property before even consider it to
Mm.
purchase?
Really good question. So, yes, we have our own basically underwriting tool, basically an Excel file that we plug in all of our information on, and we just made a video about it on our YouTube channel. It's Commune Capital, and on it you can download the Excel file if you want it. So, if you want to see how we do it, it's one of our most recent videos, how we underwrite real estate, and it'll walk you through basically all the levers to it. I think it'll be helpful. Yeah.
That's cool. That's the best answer. Guys, go to the YouTube channel, and if you want, actually, Mikey, we can edit that under our video in YouTube as a link, so you guys
Perfect.
can check the YouTube channel of Mikey and his team, because guys are really doing incredible stuff. And seriously, Mikey, like there is a lot of things could be asked. Especially for me, it's the golden mind, like information and conversation. I love this kind of conversation.
Right.
You know, when it's in something new for yourself. But like I know that you have shortage on time, and like we usually go in the same direction with the timing. So the most important for me, like to hear like maybe top three suggestions in nowadays economic and in nowadays like how world is going, what people who like building the capital have to focus on in nowadays in terms of real estate to start their journey, and why. Like 3 points. Why and except we discussed that value, we discussed about wealth, but in nowadays it's really like dollar is going super cheaper, a lot of things are going on worse and so on. Like what would you suggest, three golden points from your end?
Basically, make the case for real estate, or make the
Yeah.
case on building wealth. You want to be real estate focused?
uh let's do general, that's fine, let's do general.
Okay, making the case for building wealth first and foremost is time. It's the most valuable aspect of our lives, and if you don't build anything that makes you money while you sleep, you will work until you die. I don't think that's a awesome outlook. Uh, Two, it creates opportunity. I think this is something that we don't talk about much. The reason why the tax code in America is so progressive is because the government has learned if you incentivize investors, put dollars in certain areas that stimulate the economy grows. And so I like the idea of putting my dollars into things that build business, things that build real estate, things that are a need that then end up stimulating the economy. I think that's great for our kids and their kids' kids. And then I would say the last one is what we started on, tax efficiency. Why we give so many of our dollars back to the government. A dollar is taxed, what, 7 different times over and over and over. If you start making investments that offer tax efficiency, you get to keep more of your dollars. I think that's a good thing.
Nice. Yeah, I would say that's better. Nobody could say. I mean, it's amazing, amazing suggestion, man. Really appreciate for that, and it's the number one thing that it's exactly in the spot in nowadays, especially how smart government treating investors to make sure that the economy keep going,
Right.
especially with such kind of condition like half year ago.
Right.
Anyway, I have one general question at the end, which is I'm asking every single person the same question. What would you choose, the journey or result?
Oh, that's an easy one. The result is not that great. The journey, yeah. The look, for anybody who hasn't hit a big goal yet, it feels great for a day, and then the next day it's gone. Uh, what you end up falling in love with is the journey and pathway to that goal. So for me, that's it. That's why setting the goal is so fun, because you have to figure out how to get there.
Love, short and exactly in point. You know, I made understanding on my mind a few years ago when I read book Tim Grover, Winning. It's exactly where he describing. When you win, it's not stay forever. It stays for a second. You feel it, you enjoy it, but gone. It's gone. And now what else? Building the interesting journey to achieve the new results.
Right.
That I love the answer, short and completely in the point. Appreciate it, Mikey. Where our audience can find out you, especially guys, he's such a good influencer. TikTok, million followers, Instagram, 800,000. Well done. You see why he has these followers, because the person going live in his social medias and sharing all these things completely for free with his audience. Insane person. And he's, instead of spending time with his 4 kids, he giving value to the people around the world. So where they can find you, so and see that kind of piece of knowledge.
I appreciate that. If I'm on all the platforms, just Mikey Taylor, and I'm verified on all of them, which is cool. And I typically come up at the top. So YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, all of them. Twitter is the only one that's unique. There's got some weird way of spelling it, but Mikey Taylor is on Twitter as well. And then anything for our company, if you're interested in finding out, it's communecapital.com.
Awesome. So guys and girls, you heard it. We'll put some links behind this video for sure to find it easier. And Mikey, I was grateful to see you today on the podcast, and I really appreciate for your time and for all the knowledge which you share.